Hello boys and ghouls, let's go over a quick refresher of what's happened in this show so far. Atticus's father went missing, but he left a letter that led Atticus, Letitia, and Uncle George to Arden Manor. Here, it was discovered that Atticus was the sole remaining male heir to the Braithwaites, a family of witches who seemed to be the head of this patriarchal white supremacist cult. Among them is Christina Braithwaite, basically the coolest person ever because she has the elder gods as pets. She has big ambitions, but her attempts keep being thwarted because she has a vagina. Atticus was able to escape from the Braithwaites and destroy Arden Manor, but Uncle George ended up dying in the process. When they returned home, Letitia bought a home in a white neighborhood, only to discover that it was previously owned by a mad scientist who now haunts it. And we discovered that Christina was now in town, looking for a couple of missing pages from her spell book. Okay, now that you're up to date, I am Celine, the last thing you'll see
before you
lose your mind.
And I'm here to talk to you about episode 4 of Lovecraft Country, A History of Violence. Make sure that you subscribe to this channel and click that little bell thingy to get notified. I post regular movie reviews, all with a horror theme to them. So trust me when I say that you won't want to miss what's coming. Don't believe me? Stick around to the end of the episode to find out what movie I'll be discussing next time. So the episode opens up with Christina paying Letitia a visit at her house, asking for something that used to belong to the doctor. The main purpose behind this scene is so that Letitia can confront Atticus about Christina being back in town. She points out that Atticus's father is also back in town and that he might know a little bit more about the Braithwaites than he's saying. So if they want to get the pages to Christina's spellbook before she does, Atticus's father is their best bet. And this whole time, I'm thinking, yes! This episode is infinitely better than the previous one. I'm so glad that they're getting back on track with the plot. Letitia and Atticus confront Daddy, who insists on being as unhelpful as possible, before suddenly telling them what they need to do, before suddenly refusing to help them along the way, before suddenly agreeing to accompany them on their road trip as long as he gets to bring along Uncle George's wife and daughter. The pair of them are on a search for answers regarding Uncle George's death, by the way. Letitia's sister also comes along because she needs to spend the episode hooking up with the Braithwaites' butler. Meanwhile, Christina is confronted by a couple of important-looking dudes who ask her what she's doing here. She reveals that the thing she needs is in Letitia's house, but she can't get to it because there are a bunch of black people in there. The important-looking dudes respond by saying that they would rather have no results than results founded by a woman. So our heroes make their way out to this museum where they break into an ancient vault and face many trials, including this whole pit and the pendulum setup, which is more of a reference to Edgar Allan Poe than Lovecraft, but oh well, I'm just glad that we're getting back to the literary references here. Eventually, the gang makes their way to this, ghost-contained memory? A two-spirit native girl who remembers the days of white people butchering her people widespread anyway. She refuses to help our heroes because she's a little traumatized. Either way, they end up finding the papers. At which point, Two-Spirit starts screaming and Atticus knocks her the fuck out. They all go back to the motel, at which point, Two-Spirit reveals that a curse has been put upon her, rendering her mute if she ever leaves the vault. Atticus is talking about helping Two-Spirit readjust and his father seems receptive. But the minute that Atticus leaves the room, his father cuts Two-Spirit's throat. The end. If you can't tell by my very rushed description, this episode was very action-centered. That makes it very hard to have an opinion about this episode because it's just one small part of a whole. If this episode was the only thing I'd seen from Lovecraft Country, then I might not feel much of a need to go back. black. But this episode does further the plot in a way that we desperately needed after that fluffy non-episode last time. All in all, this episode left me feeling like this show is back on track. I found the inclusion of the two-spirit ghost memory thing very interesting anyway. I liked that they started to go into the histories of different types of people in America. Although the history of black people was significant because Howard Phillips Lovecraft was famously racist against black people. And you know what? This show really isn't dealing with that history as much as I was expecting them to. I was really hoping that this show would be kind of an answer to what do we do when an author who's been so influential towards this genre is actually just a horrible person? How do we come to terms with that? Of course, I didn't expect this to be the only point of the show. The history of racism in America is very important to explore. But, you know, this is fine. And I mean, it's not like Lovecraft was famously good with natives. Some fans argue that Lovecraft viewed them as noble savages, but most fans agree that you can skip over the noble part and just focus on that savage bit. But I feel pretty comfortable accepting that despite the title, this show has nothing to do with Howard Phillips Lovecraft. It's a horror story set in his area, and there are some monsters and items that share his monsters and items names in the script. That's it. Which is sort of disappointing to me. I was hoping for something a lot more Lovecraftian. But this is still a decent horror show with a unique and political leaning. So pretty much the only thing I can complain about this show is that it just isn't what I expected it to be, which is more on me than on the show. All in all, I'm gonna have to give this episode 7 sexist Illuminati members out of 10. It was a solid episode that progressed the plot, and I really can't complain about that. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and click that little bell thingy to get notified. Because next time, we're going back to school with the class of 1984.
Well, you simply cannot afford to fail this class. Now, what is the answer?
And trust me when I say that you won't want to miss it. Thank you so much for watching, my pets, and I will see you next time. Love you.